discussing is all about comfort zones and how we grow outside of them. Now, the context to that will all become clear when Aqsa tells a story. But yes, for anybody that does not know, Aqsa, are you okay to say hello and give a little bit of an introduction to yourself? That's okay.
Sure, thanks, Nick. Hi, I'm Aqsa Taylor. I've been in product management roles, currently director of product management at Gutsy. And throughout my career, I've had to grow out of my comfort zone in many ways. One being an international in US. I came to US about 10 years ago. It was completely different foreign culture, the language, even though I knew English, but just the cultural difference of it and not having any connections, not having any family or friends, just starting from scratch. It was all a great adventure. 10 years later, I'm here sharing my story with Nick, hoping that it will also encourage those who are going through the same challenges or same adventures and maybe inspire them a little bit.
Nice. Okay. So a lot to unpick as we kind of go through your journey then, because like you say, we're gonna the main theme is gonna be like because obviously we've had a chat before this, and at every single sort of junction in your life, you've pretty much picked the option that meant that the comfort zone was there, and you've chosen to choose that option. So as you've mentioned, obviously you moved to the United States. Obviously that was the first sort of real decision. Why the US? Why was it basically, is that where the opportunity was, or was there education or jobs or relationships? What was the reason that you went to the US then?
Honestly, back then, my friends were applying.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a FOMO kind of thing. But then also I started doing my own research and I was like, you know what? If I'm able to survive in a culture that's completely foreign to me and study and get some experience there, then it would really stand me out from the crowds when I try to pursue a career, when I try to, maybe start my own company, whatever I want to do. So I wanted that exposure, wanted that something different out of the ordinary because we all go through the same cycle. We go through our schools, we go through our colleges, we go through our job interviews and all. So, what sets you apart? What have you done differently? And so, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to see what studying in a foreign country looks like. And US is just, I mean, it's known as the land of opportunities in other countries. And so I was like, well, why not? There we go. They're applying. I'll apply. The funny part is the friends who applied with me to the same college didn't get it through, and I got through. And so I ended up here and they went to some other places.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, even that in itself, how did you feel about that? Because obviously the initial motive was obviously to go with your friends, and then which again is a little bit of the comfort zone thing. But again, as we'll run through, every single situation seems to be something where you're out of your comfort zone. So, what was the reality like when you was moving to America, going to college, university without your friends? Were you a little bit scared? Or were you like, well, this is it now, I'm here?
It was scary, not just for me, but also for my family, because in my immediate family, I was the first woman to go by herself to a foreign country for education, not
Mm.
married, not by husband. So it was a leap of faith, not just for me, but also for my mother to like take courage and send me here. And when I arrived here, I recall the first night, I'd only talked to like groups, student groups through Facebook. So I knew their Facebook IDs, like, okay, alumni at UTSA. And I said, hey, I'm coming on this day. Can you pick me up from airport and maybe some temporary accommodation till I find something
Yeah.
more permanent? And they were complete strangers because that's all I knew about them. So when I got in, I was like, oh, it's 11 p.m. at night. I don't have a phone. I can't really call them. Let's just hope they're here and their faces look like they do on Facebook.
My God.
And I did. I got into car with them and I was like, I hope they're not kidnapping me.
Oh my goodness. That is yeah, that's terrifying.
It was I don't know. I don't recommend this to students. You do a little bit of more due diligence, but at that time it was like I'll take what I get, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
thankfully, of course, they didn't kidnap me. I'm here telling the story. They were really supportive alumni, and I'm very thankful to them. But in the beginning, it was like excitement. Oh my gosh, this is so new. It's a new life, freedom, and all that. But a couple days later, there's a lot of homesickness, like, oh, I miss my mom. Oh, I miss my mom's cooking. Oh, I have to do everything by myself. Oh, I have to pay bills by myself. So it was a lot of learning. But I think the newness of it um, gave some excitement filled with the anxiety and fears. So it was like, even if I fail, nobody here really knows me. I'll just start up again. I'll just start from the scratch again.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was being open to the experience, being
Yeah.
open to rejections, being open to messing up. Really, in the beginning, I was scared, like, oh my gosh, what if I'm not speaking English the right way and they make fun of me? What if like I mess up and they think ill of me, and all this anxiety within myself. But at some point it was like I can just stay in my room and think about all these what ifs, or I can just experience it. And there's going to be times when maybe I don't put my best foot forward, but I won't know until I do that.
Yeah. And where did you learn these principles and these characteristics? Where they come from?
My mom, mostly. She's been my constant support and encouragement, and she'd always say that, it's okay. It's okay if you fail. You just try again. And
Mm.
if something's not meant for you, then it's not meant for you because there's something better for you planned by God. So if a door is closed, just think of it as an opportunity somewhere else that's waiting for you. And so I always believe that in the beginning, when I was applying for jobs and getting those rejections, it's hard to get a job without a reference, especially when you have zero experience in America. So when I was going through those rejections, my mom would just be like, whatever happens will work out for your good. So just keep your head high and do whatever you feel is best. And so my job at Twistlock came so unexpectedly. I didn't even apply to it. And it was one of those things that I didn't get what I was applying for, but I ended up in cybersecurity from electrical engineering, which is completely different core, different education, different background. But it worked out for my good. And it worked out after all these years in different roles. And now I look back and I'm like, I'm thankful for the doors that were closed,
Yeah.
because then I wouldn't have been in this path if they worked out.
Exactly. So elaborate a little bit on then. So what happened? How did this role at Twistlock come about then?
Yeah, so I was doing my master's thesis at UTSA, University of Texas. And at that time, my professor under whom I'm doing my thesis, he was working on quantum network channels. And he wanted to apply that technology or that theory to something, to security, to something
Mm.
that is up and coming. And at that time, back when I was doing thesis, Docker containers was a new technology. Everyone was talking about moving to containers, containerization, the security aspects of it. So he decided that this will be a good paper for you to work on, along with some other professor who was in cloud computing. So I took a course in cloud computing, and that's the only course I took, like in
Mm.
computer, cloud computing, or any of that. And then I thought, this is interesting. And so, but to do the paper, I have to do a lot of literature survey on what security means for containers. So
Mm.
I did Googling and research, read whatever content was out there, and I came across Twistlock among other vendors that were talking about security. So I reached out to these vendors and I said, hey, I'm writing a paper. I'll put you in for a reference. If you can just talk to me for an hour, tell me your thoughts on what you think, where you think the needs for security are.
Mm.
So Twistlock took me up. They were a new company. They were a startup. They were hungry to talk to anyone, even a student from a university.
Yeah.
And they talked to me. And I got the information I needed, did a little POC. And then when I was graduating, I forwarded their contact to my professors and other connections so that the work with the university would go on even when I moved up. But they were impressed by me because I knew containers, and in their world,
Mm.
not a lot of people knew containers. So they were like, will you be our first solutions engineer? I was like, you do understand containers is all I know. And they're like, that's all we need. So
Amazing.
so the opportunity came in, and I was still nervous. I was like, well, how will the interviews go? I don't know anything from CS. Like I barely know anything on security.
Yeah.
But it happened, and the founders took a chance on me too, a young graduate, and The rest is history.
The rest is history. But like, it really is sort of like it goes back to what you were saying about like all these doors that got shut and shut and shut and shut. Like maybe, like you say, if for example one of them doors did give you a chance, and it could have just been a dead end road where it took you, where it chewed you up and spat you back out. Whereas obviously Twistlock are like, look, we need that skill set. Containers and containerization and Docker, we need that experience right now. And the fact that you were, I think the key thing here is the fact that you picked a lane and you were like, right, I'm gonna go down and like absolutely zone in on this one specific niche, as opposed to just going across. Well, you didn't even know you were going to do security at this point, but if you were doing sysadmin, networking, all this, and then trying to get in through that, you picked a niche, and then it's kind of opened up that way. You've done a little bit of a reverse route, which is, I think, a really cool route. So, talk to me about obviously you've got in at Twistlock now and you're starting off in your role. Was it what you expected, or were you a bit like imposter syndrome? Like what were you sort of thinking in this role?
Huge imposter syndrome. Huge, because first job in America, working with people from different country,
Yeah.
culture, and I remember I used to write all my emails like I learned in my school, Mr. John Morello.
All right,
Great.
okay.
Like it was super formal. And later on I learned, I picked up on the culture and the difference and communication styles and all of that. But one thing I wanted to talk about my journey getting into cybersecurity is a lot of times we read today on LinkedIn and how people post about how to get to cybersecurity, how to get into cybersecurity, and people talk about certifications or boot camps or so and so experience. Well, my story is an example telling you that there is not one single way to do it. So if
Mm,
you don't fit into someone else's idea of what you need to get into cybersecurity, don't be discouraged because your story might be completely unique. Your entrance might be completely unique and different from somebody else's. I didn't have certifications or experience or boot camps. I didn't even know how to get into cybersecurity was a thing. Like I just knew one technology and I dedicated myself to learning everything I could about that technology. And a company that was also dedicated on that technology took a chance with me. So that's my story. And if anyone is wondering like where to start, how to start, learn something that gets your attention and learn everything about it, because everything else may fade, your certificates may expire, whatever, but your knowledge doesn't. So that's, I think, a message that I want to give people. If your journey doesn't fall into the category of what you need, it could just be different. So
mm,
fast forward in Twistlog, in the beginning, I was very worried that anything I do will end up making a customer leave. So I was
yeah.
like, everything is the end of the world. Like if I don't put a comma in my sentence, it's the end of the world. But I had a really great mentor, John Morello, and he helped me navigate through that confidence or lack of. And he would just give me situations like he'd be like, I want you to lead this call. And I'd be like, I don't know if I can. Are you sure? Like, what if? And he was like, no, I'm confident you will lead this call.
Yeah.
And just jumping into the fire kind of thing. Like you just learn to swim by jumping into the water.
Yeah.
And I did, and it one thing helped my confidence with the other, and one thing helped my confidence with the other, and so it kind of like built on. But a lot of it is not theoretical; it's practical. Like just
Right.
jumping in, taking the lead, and learning. Sometimes there were some calls. I was escalation engineer that were like just going south. They're already mad, and like, oh my gosh, I've walked into an escalation. This is what escalation looks like. But over time, I think you learn people, not just
Yeah.
the technology, but you learn, okay, this is the situation, this is the mood, and this is how this is going to go if I do certain things. This is how it's going to go. And sometimes you already know, like, okay, they're already angry and
Mm,
about a situation. There is not a quick solution to the situation, but what you can do is empathize with them and accept and agree and make them feel heard. And sometimes that helps because we are still people regardless of our titles and companies. People are people. And out of that, I actually made some really good friends. The old customers, the escalations that even today we like WhatsApp and Signal, whatever, and kind of like keep in touch. They've moved on to different companies. I moved on through different companies, but relationships stay. So that's what
Mm.
I learned over time in Twistlock.
Nice, and I speak to a lot of people, and yes, on these podcasts there is obviously a security theme that runs out throughout, but it's so many times that you strip it down to just the human and the, like you say, you understand who you're speaking to, what is their emotions, what's going on with them, why are they upset, how can I help? You assess, you bring your emotional intelligence into a situation. It's like, okay, skill set aside, what's actually the problem, and then a lot of time is when fixing a problem, with myself in my world, it's recruitment, and a company has a problem, they can't find the people. Okay, what's the roadblocks? All this, it's not necessarily the actual skill of recruitment. That's the last part of it. The first
Yeah.
part is what's the problem? Okay, what have you done? How can our skill set help you out? It's the actual doing of the job. It's just that final part. Other than that, it's solving problems, isn't it? And that's where people kind of overlook, at the end of the day. So yeah, really interesting point. So you're at Twistlock for just shy of 3 years. What happened at the end of this 3 years? Are you still feeling imposter syndrome yet, or have you kind of moved on? You're like, yeah, I belong here now.
I think after 10 years, I am much more confident than before,
Yeah,
or I feel comfortable. I don't want to say confident, maybe comfortable.
yeah,
Um, and but I won't say I'm completely immune to, reacting to situations that can, put me in a sense where I'm not as confident.
mm,
And I think that's just natural to remember that no matter where you are, what your journey is, no one's immune to failure. It
mm,
can be different ways. It can be career related, personal ambitions related, whatever it is, where nobody's immune to failure in some way. And sometimes we portray our best selves to the world. We show our successes, we show how we got there, but the journey to get there could be with highs and lows, and a lot of emotions and a lot of, tears and whatever else that took there. And that's why the people aspect is so important, because in my low times I saw who was really there for me and who wasn't there for me.
yeah,
It's a good time to recognize your relationships, your professional relationships that turn out to be your friends, and your connections that want to support you. I mean, even you, Nick, like in our first call, you were like, okay, how can I help you? Let me connect you. That was so great. And that's what I think the industry is about. Of course, we have competing products. Of course, everyone wants to make their sales and everything, but at the end of the day, all those titles will fade away, and the connections we make, the genuinity and the honesty that we have in connections is what stays. And I think that's what I've learned over years that gives me more comfort that, okay,
Mm,
if an opportunity doesn't work out or whatever, that's fine. Like, how did I treat the person? How did the relationship go? And if it went well, then I did my best. And if it didn't go well for whatever external reasons, at least I don't have a regret that I did something wrong to someone.
mm,
So that's, I think remembering your core values helps with imposter syndrome. I think that at the end of the day, even if you think you don't belong here or whatever, what are you doing with the opportunity since you're already there? What are
mm,
you doing because you're in this situation? Whether you believe you're supposed to be there or not, you're here, and that's what matters. Now what you can do is make the most of it,
mm.
and step out of it.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And as a point to that, um, we obviously all have our different. It's called the dramaturgical model, and we all have our different masks. We have our different masks to when we are around our friends, to when we are around our family, to our work self. We all have a different mask on our face. Now, I'd say that probably the more successful people. I might be wrong. This is just me quoting myself more than anything. So there's no facts behind it whatsoever. But I'd say the more successful people and probably the happiest people are those that don't see it as masks, and those that who are around their friends can come into the professional space and still be themselves. And again, taking the values from the home life into the work life. If you can be like, okay, I'm helping out my family member and bring that into the work life, then you don't have to be this completely different person. And it's still about genuinity. I think I butchered that pronunciation, but I'm not going to go back and do it again. Um, Cool. So I just wanted to just to rewind a little bit, and obviously you've done your time at Twistlock for 3 years, and then you get this big move to Palo Alto. So you've gone from having no experience in the industry, you were a graduate, and in 3 years you're one of the biggest players in the industry. How are you feeling? How did that all come about? Talk to me about that story.
Oh, I was an anxious mess when I heard about acquisition. I remember walking into my boss's office, and they were not supposed to talk about the acquisition yet, but
Mm,
there was an article that leaked or in
right.
Israel. And now the whole office, and I'm like, what does acquisition mean? Because this is my first company. I never really went through it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I was reading all these, like, sometimes just like medical symptoms, you shouldn't Google certain stuff
yeah,
because you're just adding anxiety to yourself.
yeah,
And I did, and I was like, oh, people get laid off and all that. And I was like, am I losing my job? Am I losing my salary? Who am I going to report to? Do we have to learn about firewalls?
yeah,
Like, it was complete. I was so anxious and so stressed. And they couldn't say until a certain time. So when the time came and they finally like started talking, there was still a lot of ambiguity because
mm,
things were so fluid and things were going on. There was some clarity, like, okay, we'll still work on our product and all. But the biggest change for me was my boss thought I was worthy to be a product manager to own the integration of Twistlock into the Prisma Cloud platform. That was such a huge responsibility because that's what they bought us for,
yeah,
bought Twistlock to integrate in the platform, and I was going to be at the center of leading those efforts.
yeah,
And suddenly I'm like, are you sure? The same questions like, am I worthy of this? Can I really do it? But this is why I say that relationships matter so much because you need those people, those mentors or those friends, whoever you call in your work life or work circle, who can trust you when you're not trusting yourself.
yeah,
And I got the opportunity. I moved to California, different state, very different from Texas. And got to see a completely new culture because now I was part of a big corporate.
mm,
In Twistlock, it was like a small company. So the CEO, the CTO was my boss. The CEO were all like friendly. I even did like a karaoke with the CEO, and it wasn't a big deal because you're just like a small, friends
yeah,
and
yeah.
circle. But here, it's like the exec suite is on the eighth floor, and you can't really just go there.
Wow.
Completely like, oh, the hierarchy matters. I
Yeah,
can't go to like manager's manager because of the optics. Oh, I can't just go and talk to the VP or SVP. I mean, okay, VP was my boss, but I can't just go and talk to the CEO. Like
yeah,
it's all so different. The culture was so different, and I was so out of my comfort zone. It
yeah,
was like, hey, the way people talk, the hierarchies, the approvals, the the presentations, and you don't just do your work, but you got to be able to speak about your work because it's these people don't know me. They
yeah,
know
yeah,
I'm on Swisslog, but now it's like my currency is zero, my bank balance is zero, and I have to build my credibility again from zero.
yeah,
So I won't lie. To be completely transparent, it was a difficult time in the
yeah,
beginning.
yeah,
I had not just success stories but also failure stories during
yeah,
this time.
yeah,
Situations I did not handle well, and I could have, now that I look back, like, oh,
yeah, yeah,
this is how I should have handled or communicated or done XYZ. But the stress of it, and I think also because I'm a little young. I won't say I'm so too young. I wish I could say that, but being in that role, young and also just acquired, thrown into the situation, was a
yeah,
lot of things at once. But the best learning experience. Like the skills that I picked up navigating that experience, and also the exposure that I got being in a bigger company, the bigger opportunities, the evangelism side of it. That's really where my marketing and evangelism side developed. That's
Mm,
where I got to like go to conferences, be more confident. I did go to conferences at booths before, but being able to speak and so on.
yeah.
And that after moving to Gutsy, I carried and did more of, because
Mm,
Gutsy, I started in stealth.
mm.
That's a whole another story.
Well,
Like there was
that's the
no
final
prep.
part. It's obviously you moved from a giant into obviously into a stealth startup. So is that talk to me about that? Why? Why?
Yeah, yeah. I started the opportunity came to me, and I really looked up to my mentor, my boss, and I followed him. And I think I was in the first 5 employees. I don't remember, but really early, really
Yeah.
early. First product hire. Again, directly reporting to co-founder, because we don't really have a team right now. We don't even have a product. But I remember like getting in and not knowing what actually goes on in stealth, because when I joined Twistlock, there was a
So come in
product.
on that. So why take that risk? Because you've got yourself into a really like established company. You've moved states to do this, and there's an element of security there. And you've gone, nah, this is too comfortable. This I'm gonna go back, and it's not enough danger and risk in my life. So why? What did you do when you was like, ah, yeah, I'm gonna take this risk? Why?
You know, there was a part of my brain that said exactly what you said. Like, are
Yeah,
you crazy? Like, take your stock, take your bonuses, take
mm,
your good paychecks, stay comfortable with your benefits.
yeah,
And I don't know, it must be crazy, because um, stagnancy is not something that goes well with me.
nice. I like that.
I love to explore, and exploration comes with risk, you know? And I knew the risk that I was taking with Gutsy. I knew that there is no product. We're going to be starting from scratch, and the idea may work, the idea may fail. And that is a risk that I knew that I was taking by moving away from a comfortable, corporate, settled job. You know, Palo Alto Networks will be there. It's not like they're shutting down anytime. But startups, you don't know. I mean, they can be success, like Twistlog was, or they may not work out. But at that moment, the decision for me was, is the risk worth it? Is the risk worth the growth that I want to experience? And for me, the answer was yes. Like when it comes to growth, when it comes to going out of my comfort zone into the unknown, and if it helps me grow as a person, even regardless of what the end result is, whether it's a success or not a success, if it helps me personally to grow, then the risk was worth it for me. Because
Mm.
even if it failed, I would learn a lot. Even if it was a success, I would learn a lot. But I would grow out of it. I wouldn't be the same person once I stepped into it, once I stepped into that risk. I would be someone who has gone through the stealth, who has gone through the launch, who has gone through promoting an idea from scratch that did not exist. And I'm glad I did. And if I went back, I would probably make the same decision again, because like I said, stagnancy is not something that goes well with me. Growth is where I want to be, and that comes with risk, and then risk it is.
Amazing. What a soundbite that is. I think I've got my short clip ready for this podcast because that was a great answer. I can't believe the time. I've only got time for one more question. And actually, if you could have a time machine and go back to pretty much like you say 2015, 2016, 2017, before your journey really began in where you are now. Um, what advice would you give to yourself, a younger self looking back? I know you've just said there that you do everything the same, but what little bit of tip would you give a younger self?
I would tell myself that sometimes no is for your good. As heartbreaking as it can be, I took no's very hard on myself. I doubted my worthiness. I doubted, like, maybe it's because I'm not good enough. Maybe like whatever I'm doing is just not working out. And of course, my mom was there to encourage me and inspire me to keep going. But now I would tell myself, and this is something not just for my younger self, this is something I have to also remember even right now. I mean, going through changes and things that
Mm.
sometimes it's okay to hit your rock bottom because there is only one way to go from your rock bottom, and that's upwards.
Yep.
So if you're in the rock bottom, if the answer is no, if there is a rejection or a failure, just wait. Sometimes the best action is to not take action, not to like get all riled up and anxious and stressful. Just stay calm, be
Mm.
still. If you have faith, put your faith in God. I do, and just scroll through that phase without
Nice.
hurting your mental state. And scroll through that phase. That too shall pass, and it will just be a story for another time.
Amazing. Aqsa, thank you very much for coming on to the Scooties podcast. If anybody has any questions for Aqsa, I'll be sure to put her information down below. But yeah, once again, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.